My name's Ken Hyde. I've probably met some of you, talked to you around since we've been here a little bit. We've heard a lot the last couple of days about all the things you can do with an iPad. It seems like it does just about everything you want. There's probably a few things that you think about not using an iPad for.
The what not to do with an iPad file comes this journal clip. Never mind watching young children with expensive toys. This is a amazing moment to watch anyone who thinks wireless is still another word for radio.
Well, you can see it would be totally tempting to want to do that. It does become like a cutting the word. Okay, we're here for Keynote. I'm assuming a lot of you probably PowerPoint users, because why you're here to see how you use Keynote or use PowerPoint on the iPad. Is that, how many are PowerPoint users? Pretty much everybody. To stay with the focus of this session is, using Keynote from an instructor standpoint. There's certainly going to be a lot of bleed over here in how the students will use Keynote as well. I think Dr. Lincoln had a great application and a great case study of how he used to have students use Keynote to go out and capture their own presentations, break up the groups, and create a group Keynote presentation based on the ones that they built from their individual presentations, and then show that as a group. So, but stay on focus. I'm not an instructor. I'm not a teacher. I'm very rarely behind the microphone. I'm not really comfortable here. I'm a creative person. I'm a person that pushes the limits in terms of what can I do with creative design, graphic design, how can I do these things on the iPad. I've been on the iPad now for probably 3 years. You folks are a little overwhelmed maybe in the last 2 days. I'm still overwhelmed. It blows my mind every day. There's more and more apps I see I haven't heard of. I've talked to somebody else. This is what I'm using. It's just amazing how quickly this thing is progressing, and it just makes me wonder where it's all going to end up. But the reason we're here today is Keynote. I want to do it, and the purpose is to be as much hands-on as we can. So I'm going to try to get to the point where we do as much hands-on as we can. So the first part of this is going to be a little bit repetitive. I want to talk about PowerPoint and how you can use it on the iPad. Dropbox is probably the most universal app we've all heard about. And the nice thing about Dropbox is when you put stuff into the Dropbox and you open up a PowerPoint presentation on Keynote, it'll open up a PowerPoint presentation. So you can do all your creation on PowerPoint on your desktop, put it in the Dropbox, and then when you send either an email or a link, you can open up that PowerPoint presentation in Keynote. So that, to me, in itself is pretty powerful in the fact that if you're not going to be doing a lot of creation itself on the iPad, you're going to still do a lot of your creation on the desktop machine or your laptop. I mean, I think you already been on this device enough that creating on it is going to be not really easy. Typing on it is difficult. I'm a mouse person. Using my finger is fine, but I get fumble finger. When I start thinking about using this in actual creation, it really slows me down. So, but the point is, an arrogant point the other day is an example of being in the grocery store. All of a sudden, you have a brain fart. You want to have. You got this great idea for your presentation. Yeah, you can start to build a shell of a PowerPoint presentation or a Keynote presentation, and be able to email that to yourself, and then take that shell that you started, that idea you started, and take it back to get stuff and flesh out your PowerPoint presentation a little more. So, to me, that is a good application of using Keynote on this. The fact that it's already a stage for bringing in video, bringing in some photos, writing narration, doing all this multimedia stuff that you can then take somewhere else. And to me, that's the other powerful part of this whole iPad thing is places you can go not going to send it as a PDF. So now you put that presentation in the hands of students as a PDF file. They can go to iAnnotate and start annotating your presentation. Or you can also send them the Keynote. If they all have the Keynote, if they all have a Keynote app, they can have an iPad in front of them. They can be looking at your presentation while you're giving it, but use the notes part of the Keynote app to take notes and actually follow along with your presentation. So today there's lots of different ways you're going to be able to use this and how the students can use it using the Keynote. So email, Dropbox, and Google Docs, and PDF files are all going to be ways that you can share that PowerPoint, or I'm going to use this interchangeably a little bit, the PDF and Keynote. Does anybody use Keynote on the Mac itself, the application Keynote? I've never really used Keynote on the Mac itself, a little bit, but I assume that almost everybody is going to be part of computers. So. Have you all learned about file share or seen what file share is about in terms of how that works with apps? I think Ted mentioned it on Monday, the first day we were here. Monday's too long ago. File sharing, these PowerPoints, email is going to be obviously one quick way to do it. Email to yourself, email to students. Google Docs, you can upload PowerPoints into Google Docs and Google Presents, and then you can email that. Keynote will open that as well. The trouble you're going to get into with sending PowerPoints that way is the size of them, both on our Google Mail as well as Google Docs. And it's not going to take long when you start bringing in photos and videos and all this multimedia-rich stuff into a PowerPoint presentation, and it's going to be too big to email. So you need to start thinking about that, about ways you're going to file share that. And to me, one of the better ways to file share, if you're going to go back and forth between the iPad and your desktop and your laptop, is to use the file sharing feature built into these apps. And there's so many apps that have file sharing. And I got a little video here.
To use file sharing with an app like Keynote, you first hook up your iPad to your computer that you sync your iPad with. So in this case, I have my iPad hooked with my cord to my desktop computer, which I use to sync my iPad. And then with iTunes open, I simply go to click on the device that I have plugged in here, which is the iPad 11. And here's where you have your display menus for the things you want to do with your iPad when you're hooked into your desktop machine. So I go across the top here until I see Apps. Click on the Apps tab, which shows me all the apps that I have downloaded, and here's where I can turn apps off, load different apps, or move them onto my desktop, depending on which apps I want to have loaded on this particular device. But all the file sharing apps, if you scroll down to the bottom here, you'll see file sharing. The apps listed below can transfer documents between your iPad and this computer. So these are all apps that use file sharing in some way. So as I scroll down to this list, I see iMovie, iPhoto, and there's Keynote. When I click on Keynote, here are files I've already moved onto the file sharing platform. So if I want to add a new PowerPoint to the file sharing ability here, I just grab a PowerPoint presentation, simply click and drag. And you'll now see that PowerPoint is listed here, and here's today, that put it in here. So that's all there is to moving files in and out of the file sharing experience. If I want to pull one out, I simply grab it and drag it out. This is now going to allow me to open this Keynote file in PowerPoint on my desktop machine. So it's a great way to move Keynote files back and forth from the Keynote and iPad to the PowerPoint on your desktop. And that's all there is to using file share. When you go to open your Keynote app, you'll be able to import files from the file share.
printed that here because I don't have my desktop here or a laptop where I see my iPad too, so I created a YouTube video and linked to it so you can see that. So I don't know how many of you have actually synced up your iPad to a desktop device or a laptop yet, but that's a pretty neat feature. And as you would notice, that there's a whole list of apps that are using file sharing. So and I'm not sure because I haven't been into a lot of those, how all those different apps are using file sharing, but I know for the PowerPoint Keynote part of it, it's a great way to take things back and forth. And it's one of the cleaner ways that you're going to have less formatting problems. Sometimes when you do things through Dropbox or through email, because you use different fonts or different layouts, you're going to have formatting issues. And sometimes you can get frustrated. I've transferred some pretty elaborate PowerPoint presentations through the file transfer, and they open up really clean on Keynote. So the biggest issues there are probably going to be fonts. So to me, that's a really valuable way of using PowerPoint back and forth. So if you're going to use, you're still not going to do a lot of creation yourself in the Keynote, unless it's on the fly. You might be on an airplane or the airport, have these great ideas, and all of a sudden, wow, I can do these things and start to do that. Build a shell for it, bring it back to your desktop machine, bring it back over to PowerPoint, and build it. The other thing I wanted to talk about briefly is connectivity. Right now, I have this iPad connected via a VGA cable, and the sound is coming into the phone jack, the speaker jack, where you put in the headphones. Most classrooms, that's the way the standards is set up now for the general purpose classrooms. So if you wanted to use this in a classroom situation, you walk into the classroom, you'll have the VGA dongle, which looks like this. The VGA cord goes into it, and the speaker cord will go into where your headset goes. So you're connected there with both video and sound. The future way, I think, these projectors, this particular projector is an HDMI projector. HDMI stands for High Definition Media Interface. It's going to be the way of the future. I know all the current projectors in the classroom have HDMI capability. They just don't have the cord coming to the podium. I think what HDMI is going to give you is high definition video as well as the audio going to that projector and speakers. It's going to be a much cleaner interface. I'm sure those of you that have televisions at home, you have HDMI interface. How many people have Apple TV? Yes.
I just have a question. So are you saying that the connector will be in the classrooms?
The dongle will not be in the classroom. You'll have the VGA cable coming to the podium as well as the audio jack. But if you want to use your iPad in the classroom, you're going to have one of these dongles.
And you buy them?
You can buy them downstairs in the bookstore. And there's a dongle for, this is not to be a VGA dongle. You can have an HDMI dongle that has a little bit of a different interface because that's where the HDMI goes into. I don't think any of you are probably going to walk into most any general purpose classroom and use your iPad as a display device. You're probably still going to walk into that classroom with a thumb drive in your pocket, put it in the computer, and use it that way. That's still going to be the most efficient way. But it's nice knowing that you have this capability because you might be in a classroom situation where there is no classroom computer. Maybe you're in a conference room or something. You can check out a projector from the zone, be able to look at the iPad and show you a presentation that way. I've done a little bit of work with Mark Bishard in the biology department. He travels a lot around the world giving presentations. He travels around chasing birds. He's got devices on their tracking devices. So he flies to Spain and he's checking on the vultures there. And he's often giving presentations. Well, when you travel abroad, sometimes you're dealing with issues in terms of PowerPoint not connecting up. If you travel with your iPad, you do the presentation there and you connect with the projector and things can be somewhat easy. So it's a nice thing to think about that I'm going to be able to present with the iPad solely by connecting the projector if you want. And those are the ways you have. Primarily is VGA, HDMI. And how many of you have Apple TV? Well, just a couple. Wow. Apple TV is amazing. Doug Lincoln has done some experimenting with it in his mobile initiative program that was running this summer. It was great. Apple TV is basically a router, a wireless router, and it has an HDMI output to it so that you can talk to that router wirelessly. So I could, if you have an Apple TV at home, you can sit at home and mirror everything you have on your iPad to your TV wirelessly. That could be music, photos, presentations. So, you know, in the classroom, it's nice to have an Apple TV because what that allows is everybody that's in the classroom can now send their information to the projector. And that's a lot of I've done is using it in the classroom. Every student has the ability to send his device, his or her device to the projector. So if they've been working on a presentation in the group, if they have a particular question, he can call them and they send things up to the projector. So to me, that's a very valuable way of using these devices in the future. We're going to be looking at is being able to have a wireless connection from this device to the projector. Allow everybody in the room to be able to, at a moment's notice, send whatever they're looking at up to the projector. Apple TV does that. Part of the problems we've been having is some of the wireless problems we have on campus, and so that's something we've been dealing with. I think there's going to be other things come along that allow us to do that sort of thing, whether it be projectors built in Bluetooth, and I don't know what it's going to be, but I know that's the future. We'll be able to have that in the classroom. So, for those of you who don't have Apple TV for $99, I'd recommend having it at home. It's wonderful. If you're a person that watches much Netflix, or, you know, I take a lot of photos, and I upload photos to my iPad. I like to be able to look at them on my display at home, so that I can sit there and come through all my fishing trips, whatever. Put photos that are on the screens. It's kind of nice. The other thing I want to talk about is when you connect it to the projector, which I am now, you're going to get a different look. And so I got like 4 options. I can look at it right now. I can show what the slide looks like with my notes. So if you write, first when you write your create your PowerPoint, you write yourself a lot of notes. You can show the notes. This just happens to be a screen capture. But as you can see, this is not what you would see. So you can see that you can see the notes as well as see what you're projecting. You got other options. You just show this slide, the first slide, just this slide. So we got lots of different options on how you can project your keynote presentation. Somebody like me that needs quite a lot of hand holding when I'm up here, I might want to have my notes underneath there so I can see what it is I'm looking at, what I want to talk about. And here's another screen capture of what the 2 screens look like here. I'm looking at currently what would be on the screen and be able to look what's coming up next. So getting to the hands-on part of this, are there any questions so far? Let me ask, what do you want to be able to do with Keynote? Is there anybody that has anything specific they want to, they see themselves using Keynote for?
Can I just?
Susan?
Oh, I was just going to ask, did you say there's a different capacity to screens in Keynote to PowerPoint?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand the question.
Is there a different ability with Keynote than to PowerPoint?
No.
How do they compare with the double screen? Or is it the same?
No, it's not really a double screen. No. The only thing I got up here is I have the ability to see the screen you're looking at, but on my device I can see what the next stage is going to be, what my next slide is like. I still only have one single output here to the projector, so I don't really have a double screen capability. Susan?
Well, I use Turning Point in the classroom. Can you use Turning Point with Keynote?
Now, the Turning Point representative was just here last week, and they're trying to pick their brain to see where Turning Point is going with all this, to see if they have some sort of mobile application. Because right now, currently, Turning Point works by having a radio frequency receiver in the computer. So there's really no way to put the radio frequency receiver on the iPad yet. I'm hoping that with things like talking to eClick or some of the other apps that are out there, that Turning Point's going to get on the bus. And you know, otherwise, I think you're going to get a reply.
You have a comment over?
Yeah.
Is there a way to put a video clip onto Keynote? I use a lot of video clips in the classroom. So do that?
I was in my keynote presentation just when I went to showing you how to use the file transfer. You cannot bring the video clip into Keynote, but you can create a link to YouTube. So, in PowerPoint, you can embed a video, and it all works really well in PowerPoint. In Keynote, the iPad, the only way you're really going to be able to use video is put it up on YouTube and link to it. But the nice thing is, and I'll do some of this with you in the hands-on part, the Keynote app allows you to do what I call do hyperlinking. You can hyperlink, right now you can hyperlink to other slides within the presentation. So you can start to build non-linear type presentations, or you can hyperlink to a URL. So within the Keynote presentation, you can link to any URL that has a URL, which is included YouTube. So that's how you display video. Yeah.
Could you repeat some of the problems with the Apple TV with the wire that we would have on campus if we decided to go that route?
I think Alan can speak to that better than I can.
Troubleshooting.
I need to hear your question again, sorry.
Oh, what are some of the problems you've encountered using Apple TV, like in the classroom? If I get the wireless router and I have my iPad.
Okay, if I get too technical, I apologize. I'll try and make this kind of as easy as I can. So, in order for the Apple TV to work, it has to be on the same network node that your device is on. And one of the things that we don't have here, and it's not just here that we don't have it, this is not the model of networking that is used by enterprise level services, that you can come into any room and say, I am now connected to this node in this room, and so is that Apple TV connected to this node in this room. The reason they don't do that is because it's very easy for hackers to get in and find those node numbers and then start messing around with the network. So it's more a security issue than it is anything else. So the heavy-duty security folks are mad at Apple for making such a device that will do this sort of thing because it leaves things open. They say, well, that's, if you want to take those risks at home, that's up to you, but we're not taking risks here at our institution with leaving ports open that anybody can come in and just start messing around with. We talked about locking down some of the systems, and we had the schedule to be working in the ILC. Another problem that exists is when you lock things down with a closed node, and the way you do that is you just say, okay, only these IP addresses can get on this node, so not everybody that walks in can get on it. In a building the size of the ILC that has some 30 plus nodes in it, apparently there are three, as I understand it, 3 pipes that are open out to the regular internet. And when you lock a system down like that, you are monopolizing one of the pipes. So you've got one node that is taking all of one of those pipes, and the other 30 nodes have to fight it out among the other 2, which means that you don't get near as many people be able to connect into a building of that size. So the problems with it are not simple, and there's not just one.
Right.
Those are 2 of the ones that I had described to me, and there are probably 2 or 3 more.
Okay, so it's not practical is what it comes down to.
At this
but
point,
at least
it's
I
not.
know, but I understand now why, because security is a huge issue.
Yeah, and one thing about Apple is you never know. I love Apple. I've converted. I drank the Kool-Aid, so just so you know, okay. But they do have their problems, and the one thing that's very aggravating to most people in the know is that you never know when they're going to make a point of something, like the point that they're making about Flash, right? You shouldn't. So they've said that Apple devices will never, mobile devices will never play Flash because it's buggy and it has problems in it. But then turn around and look at the Apple TV, and it allows for those same security issues to run rampant if you put it on a wider network than one that you have at home. So, I don't know if this is the same kind of a stance. Well, we're never going to change the Apple TV to work on enterprise level systems, or if behind the scenes they're actually working on it. That's the other thing about Apple is if they decide to keep a secret about something, you never hear about it. But if they decide they want you to know about it, then they'll leak it. So far there has been nothing from Apple on fixing this problem. So I don't know if it's actually going to be resolved or not. But we have heard that there are other companies out there that are predominantly PC oriented, that are trying to get the same sort of thing to work on an Android device. So this may be one place where the Android actually comes to maturity and being able to do this on an enterprise network faster than Apple does. There, now you know what I know.
Along that line, the other part that's a little bit frustrating to me too with Apple is with Keynote. I mean, Dropbox is, as you probably in the last couple of days, is such a huge universal app that's, useful not only with iPad, but with your desktop computers and your laptops too. You can bring things into Dropbox from those devices, but we can't take a Keynote out of Keynote and put it into Dropbox. There's no way that will be that way. The only thing we can upload from the mobile device to Dropbox are photos and videos. And this has been part of what Alan's talking about Apple, but hopefully that'll change. There'll be a button that you just send in Keynote to Dropbox. Particularly when you start playing with all the different apps and start seeing, that's the part to me, one of the powerful things about the iPad, is how all the different apps can be the interface. How you can send things from, some Keynote to IM to all these different things. And to me, as big as Dropbox is, Apple's trying to push you to use it on cloud, but it's just not as smart as Dropbox. We should be able to just send a Keynote to Dropbox, and I think we'll get there. Because this session is primarily supposed to be hands-on, I want to get the hands-on part of this and stuff, and we get a feel for this. Did you do the getting started little thing that was part of Keynote? It takes you 10 to 15 minutes to go through it. It's pretty helpful. It'll give you the idea of things are a little different working in this device. But we're going to go ahead and, if you want to follow along, I did send out a Keynote presentation that was on the schedule. I did that for a couple of reasons, just so that you could see that you could open the presentation in Keynote. I do have some notes on that presentation, so you can, there's some other instruction if you want to refer to it later. But particularly when just getting started with the interface. And I also did it as a means to try to keep me on focus, because I have a tendency to go off on a tangent, especially when I'm talking about graphics or being creative with this or something. So, but we're going to just go ahead and open up the Keynote and start from scratch, basically.
So you want us to open the slideshow that you have?
No, you just go ahead. I'm going to.
So you want them to open a new presentation?
When you open up Keynote, it's going to look like this. And these are all my presentations I loaded on here, so you're not going to see this. So, but when you first open up Keynote, you're going to have a plus on the left-hand corner and edit in the right-hand corner. And here's where we get started with building something new in Keynote. So the first thing we're going to do is, if we're going to, as you start to build presentations, they'll come in here and look like this. I've got a bunch of them here. A lot of them came from PowerPoint. Some I started here building in Keynote. I also am a person that I'm big on templates, creating my own backgrounds and that sort of thing. As you can see, I have one here that's got the issue branding on it. You can go to the Voice of State, Communications and Marketing, and download that. It's a PowerPoint. So, but here's where you're going to get started. So the first thing you're going to do is hit the edit button. And you see the things begin to shake and dance at you. So on the left-hand corner, you see three other little icons. A lot of these icons will begin to look familiar to you as you move around in the iPad. There's a little box with the arrow going to the right. That tells you that. First, you have to select a presentation you want to do something with. So say I want to take this one. When I select it, you see it puts a little yellow box around it. That means I've selected that presentation. Now those buttons on the left-hand corner light up. So now I can click on that, and here's where I can share this either by email or when I was talking to you about file transfer, you can send it to iTunes. So here's where you can just take a kind of a global approach and take several of the different presentations and either send it via email or send it to iTunes. Here's where I see in the future there'll be a Dropbox icon. Right now, they're pushing to all the iCloud products along with them all yet.
So can you open one that you put in Dropbox from your computer?
Yes.
So you can go to the iPad.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
It's kind of a bigger question, and I apologize in advance for asking. I mean, why do we need this? I guess it seems like PowerPoint, you've already said like do it in PowerPoint and then take it into the classroom on your flash drive, or, I don't know, it just feels a little bit like if you already know how to do PowerPoint, wouldn't that be the best way to do it? And then my second part of my question is, how are you actually going to use the PowerPoint on the iPad differently than you are going to on your flash drive, you know, that is lighter to carry and you bring it to a classroom? So I don't know, I guess I'm not really getting the distinction of this.
Oh, first of all, I don't think you are. I mean, as long as you're going to walk into the classroom with that thumb drive in your pocket, why would you use this? I mean, you already set up that way as the way you've been doing things traditionally. It's a lot cleaner and faster. I think where things are going to get different is where you don't have that connectivity. So you can walk, you can start to use this as a...
Right, I get that, and I think that's, you know, important. But I guess I'm thinking about mostly our real situations, which is we have connectivity, we have computers, we can, I don't know.
I have an answer for that.
Okay.
So, just like you're going to expect your students, or you could expect your students, to reclaim those little lost moments in their day while they're sitting in the laundry room waiting for the dryer to stop, or while they're waiting at the bus stop, whatever it is. If you have Keynote on here, you can sit down and start creating presentations on this, and you can reclaim some of those lost moments yourself. If that's not the way you go about things, then yeah, you'll wait till you're in front of your desktop and you are in production mode and go ahead and do that. But there have been times when the mobility factor, the ability to connect to the internet at any time, anywhere, has saved my bacon because something came up that I forgot about. And because I have the skill, I'm able to pull the thing up and use it in that way. Not everybody's going to be able to operate in that way. But it's taking advantage of the mobility issue. One of those 5 things that's, the smart devices allow you to do. And so, if you have that skill, this isn't the only way you can use that in those presentations, but like everything else, check it out.
I think too, the fact that you have a video camera, a very good video camera, and a still camera in this device, you're out in the field, maybe you're in the hospital or in the clinic, maybe you're a biology student tracking the nesting of the osprey. But you can take pictures, take video, throw it up in Keynote, write notes to yourself in the notes pages. So you're basically starting to build a shell of the presentation without having to be on the desktop, so that when you get back to the desktop, and you can bring that back across and start building a more robust presentation. It's probably going to put on the flash drive and take the classrooms.
It also allows for, if you have this, and they have the ability to connect it to a projector, it might be easier for you to do a presentation on the fly than you just pack it.
Yeah.
I mean, you can just connect your iPad in the classroom.
Yeah. Just like that.
Right, and then you can use your phone and use this as a clicker to move forward.
Right. No, I mean, I get it. I get that, I get the mobility. You know what I mean? I guess I just wonder, because you asked us a few moments ago, like, what do you want to do in Keynote, right? And I don't have an answer to that question that isn't the same answer as what do I do with PowerPoint. And so that's where I'm struggling. You know what I mean? Like, I get the mobility, I get trying to capture the boss moments of those. We can have a conversation about that issue. Like, am I going to be now working all the time because I can? And, that's all we're not going to go there today. But I don't know. It's just like, I think with technology stuff, I think it's fun to, like, learn different ways to do the same thing. And I get the pleasure of that. But then I think there's a point that's like, how many different ways do you need to know how to do the same thing, I guess? I don't know. I mean, I'd love to hear, like, if anybody else or, I guess I'm trying to create just some kind of conversation.
David Scott, before we started, I think in the end, this device is going to be an vision for everybody. How you're actually going to use it in your teaching and learning environment. And certainly how to use it on a personal level. And this is going to grow. I mean, this is growing so rapidly, it's hard to keep up with. I had so many days just trying to keep up with it. So So I don't think that a lot's going to change in your teaching style until you start finding strategies and ways that you're going to use that differently. I think the students will help drive this a lot. Particularly when you start putting this in the hands of students, and you start creating presentations, they can connect to the projector, they can do group work, and those sort of things. Then it'll start to really change, and I think then it'll be truly a paradigm shift.
Is it fair to say that Keynote and PowerPoint are the same on two operating systems?
Keynote is,
You're not going to do anything different on Keynote than you would do.
well,
Because of your brand.
correct, basically. Keynote's got some different rules and bells and the way it does things different, but they're basically the same.
So then that can piggybacking off of that, how is Prezi different or similar, other than it's web-based?
To me, I agree with a lot of what she's saying. I think sometimes technology's gotten us. We're doing things because we can. Marshall McLuhan wrote a long time ago, the meeting is a message. I mean, are we really pushing this because we can? It's the latest, greatest thing to do. We all got to do it. I kind of feel that way with Prezi. Prezi is a great tool. I get seasick watching it. I watch it from home.
Yes.
You're in, you're out. You're in, you're out. But it's one of the newest presentation platforms, so people like using it. Is it as powerful as PowerPoint? No. There's so much more you can do with PowerPoint. That's just because it's the latest, greatest thing. So I don't think this is the panacea. Certainly not yet. It's another tool, and I think it's going to take on a life of its own. Honestly, it has. We're all here, and I think it's really going to, in the hands of the students, where it's really going to change. But
so I guess I'd encourage you to have these conversations, also outside of this session, and talk to other folks and push this around a little bit. But for now, there are goals that we have for this session. I think Kim needs to get to.
No, that's fine. This is a great conversation.
Can you make backgrounds from the camera roll?
Yes.
So I just haven't come across it yet.
Now you get into my area of expertise and my fun. I can do a little bit of that, but I'm going to stay a little bit more just for this interface with the time we have. We might get to doing some of that too. So anyway, here's where you can share your Keynote by the little button up there. I can come back if I want to delete one. I select it and I hit the trash can to delete it, or if I want to copy one. And here's where I get it if you start bringing in, because I like bringing in photos, or maybe I find things I want to use as my own backdrop. So I may have like this, the DSU. If I open that now and start building a presentation on it, this is all auto-saved, so it'll save it as a presentation. I really don't get to keep it as a template, so to speak. If I want to keep it as a template, what I'm going to do is I now have that highlighted. I'm going to select the middle one. And now I get a copy of it. So now I can open up this one and do my creation on it and still keep one that hasn't been untouched, so I can kind of keep as a template. So that's one way to kind of keep the two different files. The other thing you can do on here is much like your apps, when you put an app on top of another app, build a folder. So if you start building a lot of different backgrounds and templates, you can take one. You can click edit first, click one. Try this again. I did it the other day. So now I'm creating folders where I can start to build those templates and backgrounds, and you can start to label those. You can label a folder here and do that sort of thing. Okay, now we got it. There we go. So that's the kind of ways to globally start manipulating your presentations here. When you're done with that, if you want to start actually building one from scratch, hit the plus button, and here's where we're going to create a presentation. Here's also where you copy it from iTunes. If you go through the file transfer process, put something from your desktop into iTunes, here's where you open it up on the iPad from here. So we're going to create a presentation. These are the default templates that come with the program. You can go out and do an Apple Store search and type in Keynote. I think I've downloaded 3 or 4 different ones. Some of them are free. I actually paid for a couple. Where you can start to find other, they provide like 20, 25 new templates for you to use. I tend to do what David's talking about, is maybe start doing your own too, particularly from photos you have. I'll get to that in just a minute. But here's where you build a brand new presentation. So if I pick a particular one here, I go ahead and open it. And here's the nice feature of building stuff in Keynote. A lot of it's just touch and tap. So if I hit the plus button down the lower left, it gives me the different layout options I can have here. So if I know ahead of time I need to have a slide for that particular, if I can go ahead and load up several of these. So on the far left there, it's much like in PowerPoint. I've started to build my slides, what my presentation is going to look like. I can go back and fill that in as I go. So I can go back to my title slide now. And if I want to replace that photo, when I touch it, I get a bar across the top. I can cut it, copy it, paste it, delete it, replace it, or animate it. So if I want to replace it, if I go to the camera roll, find the photo I have in there to replace it with, and replace it. And here's where I would, if I was going to do something, wanted to keep this particular shot of the photo as a background, I want to keep for future presentations, I'll just put it on a single slide, stretch it out for the whole slide, and then save that into my file. My file time, I'm going to have it to use.
Actually, when I tap on the photo, I got a thing that I had to open my, when I type on replace, it says I can't access photos or video.
Do you have things in your camera roll?
Yeah.
I don't know if any of you have photos in the camera roll now, but I did put some on the schedule if you wanted to download some, just so you have something to play with. Some photos of BSU and some different things there. I also put kind of a graphic design that's kind of blue and orange. It's kind of a nice Bush Estate looking sort of background that you can use if you want to use that.
Those are the pictures that are
They're on the schedule, yeah. They're on the
schedule.
Yeah. And if you just click on one and hold down on it, it'll copy it, and it'll copy it, and you can roll.
Because I have Keynote open or at any time.
Anytime. And that's pretty much the case with anything. I don't know if any of you use Google Images. It's not exactly, we have to be careful with copyright, but there is a lot of fair use. If you use Safari, you go to Google, type in what you're looking for. If you're looking for a photo of the sawtooth, click on Google Images. You can hold your finger down on it. It'll come up with copy, and you can copy that photo into your camera roll. And then once it's in the camera roll is where everything interfaces with everything else on the iPad, so you can put it into iMovie, Keynote, and put you want to use it. So when you click on the plus sign up here, you notice I got all these different options. I got media, tables, charts, and shapes. So media, again, it's going to come back to the hierarchy, the folder structure you have, primarily the camera roll. But this afternoon I'm doing a thing on digital photography and also how you can start creating folders on your iPad and put photos into those folders and start creating more organized with your photos. But here's your media. And that media can also include video. It doesn't necessarily have to be video that you shot with the iPad. it's video that you've uploaded on here as well. So if I go to all imported, I can see all my stuff here. And if I import video, yes. I'm going to do it for you right now. I have to be careful which one I import. Oh, I'm sorry. I misspoke. If you shot the video, it's in your camera roll. Yes. Yeah. But it has to be in the camera roll. But we can't have a video on PowerPoint bring it across. It's not going to hold up. But if you've built it into your Keynote from the camera roll, then it'll be there.
And then when you put it back to PowerPoint, will it stay?
I don't think so. No, I haven't tried that. That's a good point.
Can I ask an idiot question, please?
Yes.
So I'm messing around trying to keep up here, but I missed the step. How do you get to the settings icon from the screen when you have it all like?
To import it.
Double tap it.
Is that right?
I can't find it. Oh, here it is. So here's a video that I shot last summer with my shot video that I had. It's still on my camera roll. So I go ahead and the insert media, click on the video. I want to go ahead and click views. It's compressing the video now to this file format. Now it's just like any other object. I can now move it around. I can make it smaller if I want to include it with text. I can make it big so it fills the frame. So when I go to show mode now, as soon as I click that, that's pretty clean video. See this shot in the iPad itself and then input it into the Keynote. And when you want to delete something, again, you just tap on it. Whatever you're working with, you can cut it, copy it, or delete it.
So when I clicked on that, maybe you just started talking about this and I missed it. It said I have to have location services on.
That's what Latana had, and I hadn't seen that before.
Location services sucks down your power.
Oh, that's, yeah. So I just switched.
Why would you have to, if it's
I
already
don't know,
on
you
your
know anything about that? I don't know, I ran into that before. They're needing to turn on location services.
Right.
Why?
Because it keeps track of where you are, and it sucks your battery down if you have it on for everything that you've got open.
I know, but why, if I have a picture on my computer, why does it need location services for me to put that picture into my PowerPoint?
I don't know. It just does.
It does.
I'll look that up, though. I think that is my special little assignment for today.
I think knowing how.
That's a good question.
Knowing why, though, isn't going to change the reality.
location services
Probably.
Seems like this. Yeah, it's fine.
Because it's an Apple. No, I'll see if I can find the answer to that.
So when you start importing this media and stuff, you'll notice that anytime you click on something, right now I have the photo selected. If you take your fingers and pinch and zoom, you can zoom in bigger if you need to work bigger. Once you've selected an object, in this case the photo, I can go up to the little paintbrush, which is the format, and here already got other things that you can do. If you've done much work in PowerPoint, you know that there's an order of things, that there's front to back. If you start drawing things, the last thing in is the one on top. So I like, for some reason, one that has that photo, so that the text showed up on the photo. The photo just came in on top of that text. So what I need to do is move that photo behind the text. So I select on the photo, click on the paintbrush, and here's where the little slider is, and it does it incrementally just like in PowerPoint. I I can go one step at a time, or just slide the whole thing all the way to the back. And now I've got that photo in the back. So there's where the whole format, and then I can click on style. There's all these options in terms of how you want to use your photo. You can make it look like it's in a photo album.
Yeah, right.
I got style options. I can change the opacity of this. There's another little trick if you're using photos as a background for a presentation. You can change the opacity of it. So if you want it to be a little more subtle, it makes that text stand out a lot better. So if I go full frame with this, because I changed the opacity on that, I go to show mode now. And this behaves differently on what's on the projector.
I think it's waiting for you to write something there. Maybe what's not showing up.
You never had to do that?
So double tap to write something there.
Oh, I got you, yeah. Those are good logs. Yeah, thanks, Scott. Anyway, as you start playing with all these different things that you can do with either the photos, the format tool is up there. The same with text. If I select on text and hit the format tool, here's where I can change the text box. I can go to the style options, change the color. As you can see down at the bottom here, all the colors. All these colors will be based on whatever template you choose. So I can slide through here and take different colors for the text. I can have it to be no fill. I can change the color of the border. I guess the more style options here. I can have the border on. Change the color of the border. Again, you can change the opacity of the text, put a border on the text. You always going to make sure you have something selected, just like in PowerPoint. Whatever object you have selected is when you're going to start to change attributes to it. So, on the left-hand side, it's just like in PowerPoint, there's all those different slides. If you need to move slides around, just click on one and you move it down or up, depending on where you want to move it to. If you have one you don't no longer want there, just click it once so it's selected it, and then tap it again. I can now either copy that slide and put another one somewhere else, or I want to delete it. I can delete it. This is where you start to really move your slides around. If I want to put in a transition, I select on that again, and again I tap that. The transition is what happens from slide to slide, just like in PowerPoint. So if I want to select the transition, I click. And here's where it gets crazy with all the different things you can do. You're probably overdone, but I can transition from one slide to the next. So now I'm in show mode.
Can you go backwards and show note?
Yes, you can. If you're in show mode, you can slide your finger forward. You go forward, slide your finger the opposite direction, you go backwards. once you're in show mode, you want to get out of show mode, just take your fingers and pinch them in. If I'm going to do, say, a slide like this, where I'm going to have a title and the word part of this, I'm just going to do save on time, double tap. I'm just going to do some bullet points. Different development group. So now I have a word slide. For those of you that know what a build is, so you want to build in each one of those bullet points one at a time, kind of like you do in PowerPoint. I select on that text box now. I go up to the paintbrush, and I do, go to the tools, the little wrench, and I'm going to do transitions and builds. And here I can have that text either come in or go out, depending on what I want. Again, much like PowerPoint. If I want to have it build in, I'm just going to do something as simple as appear, and I'll make all those plain glass pieces and all that sort of stuff. I'm just going to have it appear. And so you can see that she's now, so now when I go to show, I'm done. I go to show mode. Just like PowerPoint, that text is there, so as I tap the finger, it comes on. And in this case, it had to come on all at once. So if I close down out of that again, tap on the text, go to the wrench, transitions and builds, I have appear. Down at the bottom, I have the effect, options, delivery, and order. So I can change the order of it. I can also change the timing of it. And I can also do it on delivery. If I want to do it by bullet, the bullet group. So in this case, I want to do it by bullet. So I go to done, show mode. And now when I tap my finger, just one bullet at a time.
Could you go over that last bit?
To do a build?
Yeah.
Okay, once I did my bulleted text, it's now in there as 5 different items. And now I select on that text, and I'm going to go up here to the wrench tool and select transitions and builds. And here where I have choices if I want that text to either appear or disappear. In this case, I want it to appear. I want it to come on the slide. I want it to come on the slide one bullet at a time. So I go ahead and select appear. And there's my animation choice. It could be anything from all the other animation choices you have. But what I want to have is the delivery, tap the delivery button. And I can either have it now by the whole group, or I can do it by bullet. If it's all at once, the top choice is going to do all 5 of those. To do it by bullet, it's going to do one at a time. So that's my choice. I've been done. So that when I go to show mode now, that's going to build in one bullet at a time.
So do you think it's such though that in PowerPoint we do, PowerPoint definition, so many choices, like a bit easier to do the same endpoint?
Excuse me, I still?
Is it quicker, easier to get to the same endpoint in Keynote than if you did that in PowerPoint?
To have that transition happen, you need for that particular slide or for all the slides?
Just for that one.
Is it quicker here or quicker to PowerPoint?
Yeah, that's the question.
I think it's quicker for PowerPoint. I'm using PowerPoint. I'm using a mouse. So, okay, I wanted to show you an example of a couple of things too. I'm going to go back to the Keynote. Here's a presentation that was done on PowerPoint in my shared biology. I just want to show you an example of what it looks like bringing it across from a PC. Again, I didn't touch this presentation at all. I think there's 50 slides in this presentation. I went through the file transfer process from my desktop to Keynote. So that's a lot of slides. I did not have one format issue. And this is a particular case of a PowerPoint that I use. It's mostly linear, but I've built in some non-linear aspects to it. That's what the little buttons are down the bottom. So I can hit a back button, and it will take me backwards, or I can go to that button, and it takes me to this particular page. I kind of work on this. You want to be able to talk about a particular bird at a particular time, not necessarily be locked into a total linear presentation. So if he was wanting to hear to talk about the turkey vulture, all he has to do is click on the turkey vulture. He's now in that portion of the presentation. And these were all builds that I built in PowerPoint, not Keynote. Again, it was easier to build builds in PowerPoint, bring across. It all came across clean, complete with bullets and with the animations, and complete with the hyperlinking. So if I want to go back to that slide, I get launch nest. If I want to go to the osprey, I can tap, 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 keep tapping. Has some built-in maps and things. So again, here's a pretty sophisticated PowerPoint that was built in PowerPoint, brought across through Power Transfer to Keynote, nothing was lost. So I think that's pretty powerful in itself.
So if you click on the L or the N or the C, it takes you in a non-linear fashion
Yes.
between this. Okay.
And I'm showing another example of that. There's one that a couple of summers ago, we did a summer institute, and I did a thing on building non-linear presentation. So here's one I did for that particular, as an example. So as I go to this, I have to be open up. So I click on the little home icon, it takes me home. So now I have a PowerPoint presentation that's no longer linear. Here's an example where you could either have control of it, or if you wanted to make this available to the student, then they have access to the content at their own pace. They can go through it, whatever pace they want. So at this point, everything is interactive. Everything is a button. And before I do this, I want to show this to you, because this was totally built in PowerPoint as well. When I go up here to hit the transit, I'm sorry. Get ahead of myself. Hit down here on advanced and interactive hyperlinks. All those little blue arrows show that every one of those objects is a hyperlink. And this is created in PowerPoint. So I know, just looking at this, those are hyperlinks. And I can build this also in Keynote. I can create hyperlinks. So in order to show you this as an example, if I want to click on the state tree, I go to the state tree, and I can have more advanced slides. You can give directions to this, somebody doing this, go ahead and go through this, and go to their own page. I can go home. I want to go to the state flower. Over interactive, go back home. I want to look at the state horse. I now can click on the link, it takes me to YouTube. We link out to YouTube. I can go full screen with my YouTube. So now I can double click the little desktop and that icon here. It takes me back, and I open up back in the Keynote. It takes me right back where I left off. So I now I'm jumping off Keynote, jumping off YouTube, but I didn't really leave my Keynote. So I can come back to the home button. Again, if I go to the state bird, I can link out to another video. It's a way of building on the presentations. And I think a little more powerful way to start to build, number one, deliver the content so the student has space to it, but it's also a great way to, if you're a clicker user, you no longer lock into having to say, oh, my next slide is a question slide. You can have a button that takes you to the question slide whenever you're ready to use it. So that's part of the nice thing about building non-linear.
Did you show them the laser pointer?
Yeah, I'm in show mode now, so anytime I just put my finger and hold down on it, it becomes a laser pointer.
Feature that laser?
Yes. It's built into Keynote. So again, looking at this, if I look, using this idle fax thing that I got here as an example, if I go back to the advanced to show the hyperlink, interactive hyperlinks, you notice I don't have that hyperlink for the state raptor. If I wanted to build one now, I would just hold down, so I select that box. You see this automatically linking to this. I can do this hyperlink now, link to the slide, whatever number I want to link to, or I can link to a URL. Here's where I type in the URL. So that when I click on State Raptor now, it's going to hyperlink me to that website or the URL for the there. Or in the Keynote, I could hyperlink to mail. But the fact that you can hyperlink around the different slides is really good too. So I think a lot of this stuff is easier in build in PowerPoint or in the Keynote, but the fact is you can build it in Keynote if you want. So we did transitions. Transitions is much like PowerPoint. Transitions is what you do from slide to slide. Sometimes people get carried away from that. Builds is what you build on a slide. Every object you can build on the slide, whether it's an arrow. And that's the other thing we can do. We're looking at, I'll go back to my presentations. And if I do a new one, sometimes if I want to do just say a white background, I do a plus. Here's where I can just do a plain white background. So if I want to go now to tables, charts, if you want to do a chart, there's always different options in terms of doing a chart. If I wanted to do a pie chart, it shows you I can twist this around. This is a chart I did already. So I can rotate it.
Can you add a text box onto that blank white?
Can I left?
Add some text box?
Yes. And here's part of the frustration for me. I was playing with this a little bit. I've done a lot of graphing in PowerPoint. You can add the text box here. And I can animate 5 pieces and stuff. But if I come in here now and I say I come up to plus and I'm going to do, say, a shape. I have to grab a shape, say up here, and if I tap on that, I can type text in there. So you can build your legend. Here's where it gets a little bit tough with your fingers to grab the mouse. And if I also wanted to do, say, a line, is what I'm going to do is start to label all this. And I can hit that again and copy it, click somewhere else, and paste. Use the text box, I can begin to do arrows, do lining, do labeling, do all that stuff in Keynote. It's tedious here, yes. I'd much rather do it in PowerPoint. But the point is you can do it here. You also can animate 5 pieces. We do, if you want to animate, just like we did the build, you can animate 5 pieces, choose which pieces come out first, second, and all that sort of thing.
How did you make the one that sometimes jump out?
I just grabbed it. Here at the very end, we can edit the data. So if I want to come in here and change the data, it kind of looks like what it does on our numbers. That's a small abbreviated kind of spreadsheet. Or I can also now select that and do animate. And here's where I can do a build. I have all those choices in terms of doing a build. Again, it's just like we did on the build of the text. We do a delivery. I want to do it all at once. starting to work to build stuff on the Keynote here. I didn't really do that. So if I want to animate those pieces again, I'm going to come back into animate. I want to say I'm going to do that.
Ken, you've got about 3 minutes left.
Okay.
You got a question over here?
Yes.
I don't know if I missed this at the beginning, but did you say you can create a PowerPoint and show it on Keynote? Because I tried that in the fall. I don't know how the features work, but I had the iPad 1. So with the 2, you could?
I can't remember what happens, but yeah, the 2 you definitely can.
All of the video effects, the special effects.
The video, I haven't tried transferring that across. The best thing to do with video is to have it on camera or iPad. Everything else.
Template that PowerPoint provided, and it had really nice graphics, but they wouldn't show up when I tried it with the presentation, the Keynote. It would just be pictures, stills. It didn't make these transitions.
How did you bring it over to Keynote?
I can't recall. I'm not a novice.
I'm trying to get, when you use the file transfer process, when you're synced to your iPad synced up to your computer, drop the PowerPoint presentation.
I just tried to copy it.
Come and see us, and we'll do it with you and see how it ends up.
Okay.
I'd be interested to see if it works or not. So.
Yes.
Can you change the color of your phone?
Yes. I select the text box. I'm done here. I want to go back to my, here's where I change the colors. I can change it to red. I can go to fill. Here's all the different colors here. I can slide through those colors. Yes, go ahead.
You said we could show the notes if we had notes?
Yes.
When you're projecting it? Did I miss that, or how do you get to the notes?
You go up here to the tools, and here's presenter notes.
Okay, so we can type them in, but then can we, did you say we could show the presentation and the notes at the same
When you hook
time?
up the projector, you have the ability to choose how you want that to look here. So if I want to see those notes as I'm projecting, yes, I can see those notes.
Thank you.
Also, if you do a lot of notes, like there's options for the PDF file that you send the PDF up in Keynote to say yourself or student that they can see the notes as well, so they can do some annotations. I'm much better one-on-one than I am in a group of people. So if you come see me, I'm glad to help you in any way I can. I think it's easier to go off and change the streets, so I'm sorry.
The background color, I think was okay.
Sure.
So what's the angle?
It's not this is They got some crazy ones. You ought to see the one that's called Flames.
Me too.
So Ken, just got a question about how you change the color on the chart or the background on the slides.
Basically, have it